Stop asking everyone else for replacements for characters, weapons, summons, and either figure it out yourself or make plans to get those things. Intro start. Hello, hello, hello. This is AJT500 slash Townsend Track 98 slash Heloise Wonderwise slash Hilo slash Sarasa's Cake Heart. And this is the, I don't know. I don't even know what to call this, bro. The replacement rant. the replacement rant. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what to call this. Maybe a replacement rant doesn't sound that bad though. But so this is gonna be one of those scripted videos because I have a lot to talk about and I've been writing notes on it all day. And by notes, I just mean like the script for this joint. So we're gonna go through this. I'll put some music in the background for it, but I do want to show a little bit of a few things in Grand Blue. So pretty much I have everything laid out in this, so I'm just gonna start reading from it, okay? Because we got 24,000 characters to go through. So okay, this is spurred due to recent discussions I've had with Aku privately on stream, and most recently the improvements to Advanced Grid's open discussion that I saw on Twitter from Umiken, where she's asking for suggestions to help make Advanced Grids the page better, right? And the Advanced Grids discussion is the final nail in the coffin for me, because while I'm not going to specifically call anyone out, I've seen a lot of replies that were asking for things like replacements for certain characters slash weapons slash summons on the pages, easier access for new players, keeping older setups on the wiki pages longer after they become outdated. And while this isn't alternative based in the sense of replacing something optimal with something worse, but the opposite, updating things faster on the wiki as they're discovered, I want to touch on that a bit as a wiki team outsider who has worked on the wiki in the past. I think a lot of the points brought up with this discussion feed back into the things I've dealt with personally, so that's why I want to make this video. Let me state that my opinions are my own and I'm not affiliated with anyone previously mentioned other than myself. So if I say something you think is stupid, take that up with me. That is just to protect like the wiki staff and Aku. I'm not affiliated with anyone. This is not spurred by anyone telling me to make anything. This is purely my own stuff. If you guys have been around my streams, you guys already know that I've ranted about this in the past anyway. So yeah. That being said, let me start with a bit of a rant. Probably the most commonly asked question I get when I post a setup for something is some form of what's a replacement for X character slash weapon slash summon. The reason this question is so annoying is because overall people don't realize how much time, effort, planning, testing can go into a setup. And IMO, it almost feels rude for me to spend hours working on a setup and creating the reference material for it, just for someone to come along and say, hey, I don't have X piece, what's a replacement? Because what you're really asking me is, hey, I don't have X piece. Can you do all the planning, testing, and potentially creating of the reference material again so I can see how to do it? Also, I'm being incredibly vague with my question and not including what I have on my account. So even if you do suggest the next best thing, I don't have that either. So you may have to do it again. And that's really kicking annoying. The underlying issue is that Grand Blue's team building can be incredibly restrictive, and while some setups showcased are at the absolute top end of min-maxing, most of the time X character weapon summon is there for a reason, and if you change one thing, you have to change something else to make up for it. And this is the inherent problem with the what can I replace X with question. And these are the main reasons why this question is so frustrating in my opinion. Overall party restrictions, character restrictions and limitations, boss design slash mechanics, character grid summon power, and the unknown factors of the asker. We'll go over these in order, but I'll show you how they all flow into each other. Firstly, overall party restrictions. Simply put, there's only so much stuff you can put in a party when it comes to characters, weapons, summons. What this means, as I said before, is when someone asks what's the replacement for X, 9.9999 times out of 10, that thing is there for a specific reason, and to swap it means you need to have something else swapped around for things to work out. It's not as simple as just plug and playing one thing for another, because there are different characters that do specific things. Weapons with specific stats, summons with specific effects, and there's only so much stuff you can fit into a party in order to accomplish what you need to do. Secondly, character restrictions and limitations. So let's use my Earth Full Auto comp for Leviathan Mare. So I'm gonna go to that, which is not here, which is here. So this party right here is what I want to look at. So let's use this comp for Leviathan Mare, which is Reinhardt, Zara, Raziel, and Sarasa. And someone for this example wants to replace Ryan. Now Ryan does a lot of things, but for now, let's purely focus on his S2 as that's one of his main gimmicks for this fight. We'll keep it basic for this example and just say his S2 allows him to all allies sub while also getting heightened defense. It lasts for 3 turns and is reset once he hits Reki's 3. It also gives him Undying 3 times. Why is this important for this setup? Well, we'll talk about that in, thirdly, boss design and mechanics. So obviously, different bosses have different mechanics, phases, triggers, and team building means making something that can work around these things. Continuing with our example of Leviathan Mare, and once again keeping it simple, the main mechanics we'll be focusing on here are his inundation stacks and his Devour whatever trigger. I always call it Devorio trigger, so I'm gonna just call it that. Devorio trigger. Pretty much, once a character gets 3 of the inundation stacks, they will become immobilized, and if they hit 4, they'll be knocked out. Inundation stacks go through Veil and have a chance to be applied when a character is hit with autos, but it can also be applied with his max charge diamond trigger and the Devorio trigger. So let's circle this back to Ryan before moving on. Why is his kit important for this setup? Ryan allows you to essentially avoid 3 turns of autos on everyone besides Ryan, since he has all allies sub at that part at the start. He also avoids stacks himself because of his heightened defense. He can zero out the damage, and if you don't get hit, you don't get a stack. Remember too that his S2 comes back after getting Reki 3, which is coincidentally towards the end of the fight when you start running into mandatory Devorio triggers. And this allows him to keep the rest of your team safe while also throwing out a bit of damage from counters, even if he becomes immobilized due to stacks. Not to mention as well that this team is built with Sarasa on it, and while some of the damage Sarasa takes is mandatory and manageable, taking even 1 extra hit could vastly change how the setup operates. So if you intend to replace Ryan, you need a character that can not only help avoid / clear stacks throughout the fight, but also someone who can allow you to survive the Devorio trigger at the end, and ideally not just survive, but also not get stacks from it as well. One character that you could use is someone like Valentine Makra, as her S3 allows you to bypass Devorio at the end by dodging and not getting stacks. The problem with this is Makra doesn't protect the team for the rest of the fight as well. Remember the inundation stacks go through Veil, so there's a possibility that the team hits 3 to 4 stacks and becomes unusable way before the end purely due to autos. Makra's S3 would also need to perfectly align with the turn that the Devorio trigger goes out, which isn't impossible if Oging due to Makra's skill CD reduction from Ogi's, but with Ogi off, it's on a 10 turn cooldown and my original setup has already finished the fight by turn 9. So in a 1-to-1, it is indeed impossible without other outside forces. Again, following this, Sarasa also has the possibility of dying since Ryan isn't there to protect her, and Makra can only save you for 1 turn at the start, so this could also break the setup. Also keep in mind Raziel as well. Ryan presses 3 yellow buttons for his Rekis and 2 for his S2 cast, whereas Makra will likely only get 2 yellow presses in the same amount of time, which can mess up Raziel's burst for the end. This means you now need to make up those yellow skills on another character instead of Sarasa or your MC. As you can see, as we go down this rabbit hole, changing just 1 character in Ryan can massively disrupt the setup because no one does what he does exactly. And that's not even to mention part 4, character, grid, and summon power. Ryan is strong, but the rest of the team is strong as well. What I mean to say with this is Ryan is not the only character that's not easily replaced. Let's start with the fact that overall for this fight, this team is built around pushing specific HP thresholds at certain times. Leviathan Mare has 2 triggers at 90 and 60% that do damage but do not inflict inundation stacks. This is important because they essentially give you 2 turns to avoid being immobilized or straight up dying, and pushing these triggers on certain turns lessen the amount of turns you can potentially get stacks in the first place. This is where the rest of your character's grid summon come in. Let's start with MC, their fighter origin with fronting. If you don't have fronting, you're already washed here because your MC won't have guaranteed double strike for the entire fight. So you already will be pushing turns at different points during the fight. Also note that from my weapons, so I'll show you this on the actual grid itself, from my weapons and summons, so I'll show you this part too. For my weapons and summons, and I'll just show you this boost part because I already know where I'm going with it. Also note that for my weapons and summons, my MC only gets to 43% TA, 50% with the Wonder, and this setup doesn't use Oof Headin. So in order to make the setup consistent, we need another 50% TA. We have two options here, Orologia summon or Raziel. The issue with Orologia is not only is an extra button press, but it means I have to swap out another summon for it. And it also doesn't really help the rest of my team in the same way Raziel's buffs benefit everyone. Another funny interaction with Orologia and Leviathan Mare is that the extra bit of damage you do from pressing Orologia S1 at the start can offset when Leviathan Mare's triggers get pushed later in the fight. For example, when Leviathan Mare gets pushed below 40%, his max charge diamond trigger changes from normal toward Tormentum Aquae to Devorio. And if you get a Devorio earlier than your setup is ready, you're cooked. So it's important that your setup gets Tormentum or has some way to deal with an early Devorio. All this is to say, essentially, there's a push that this team does pretty much from like, I don't know, it's like 50% to like 43%, 42% or something like that. If you use Orologia summon at the start, sometimes what you'll do is you'll push all the way down to 40%. And the thing about this boss is Leviathan Mare is dumb as crap. And even though technically the 40% pushes him into his break, he immediately just breaks out of break and then uses his full charge diamonds to Devorio your butt instead. So you don't actually get to use the fact that he's broken and he can't fight back, because he just breaks out of that joint at 40%. And if he has max charge diamonds because he hasn't used the Tormentum, he just used Devorio instead. So if you push too far with the Orologia summon, then you're automatically cooked, because if you run into that joint and you're not ready for Devorio at that time, you freaking die. You freaking die. Now let's move on to Raziel. We've established that we want to bring her over Orologia because of potentially bad pushes, having to swap summons around, and less overall team damage. The main reason she's here is that her S3 is very important for finishing the fight off at the end before you get hit with another Devorio, while also providing team damage and TA to consistently push triggers at the right time. Sure, you could throw someone like Makra in once again, but your damage will be severely lacking at the end, and Makra doesn't help the TA issue on your MC. As for Sarasa, she provides a massive amount of damage, especially in conjunction with Raziel's buffs. This is her main purpose, and no one can quite do the same amount of damage during the parts where that damage is needed with as few requirements as her, so it makes it very hard to replace her. Let's touch on the weapons too. So I'll bring this back up so you can see it. Let's touch on the weapons too. I already spoke about hunting, but to reiterate, even though Fighter Origin has permanent double strike after using unlimited boost, until that point, you need hunting in order to push damage and get charge bar for charge conversion to even get unlimited up when it needs to come up in the first place. Helden Hymns and Medusa weapons are also important. Not only do they enable 100% crit, but it's also just the damage values of them. You could swap a Helden Hymn for something like Antheria book, but your damage will be behind, and if you fail to push the boss like I do in my video, it can lead to a disaster. The same goes for things like Destroyer Weapon, which is not only damage, but damage mitigation. I'm not even entirely sure if Ryan completely zeroes out the damage without the extra reduction, which means he could get stacks and then the whole setup gets bricked early. As for summons, most of them are self-explanatory, so I'll swap to these. Scroll down a bit, there you go. As for summons, most of them are self-explanatory damage boosts, but one I've been asked about a lot in the past is Summer Mandrake, and once again, that strength buff she does help a lot to push the damage numbers to where they need to be. And Uriel is not only damage cap from, being max and whatever, but he is actually called here for the initial charge bar as well as the charge bar gain for helping Rhine, and to a lesser extent MC, get to where they need to be when they need to be there for charge bar related actions. So again, Uriel needs to be here because he needs to be called, because Ryan needs to get, he pretty much by this, the way this setup works is Ryan needs to get 200% bar before you take the Devorio trigger at the end so that he can reset his S2 and then tank it for you. If you don't have enough charge bar by then, or if your Reckies are not far enough along, you're freaking cooked, because you're not going to get that skill back. That skill is that skill is like 12 turn cooldown, and this setup is supposed to kill the boss by turn 9. You need this by like turn 8. So it's like you have to have something like this Uriel summon right here. You have to have that. That's just how it works. So moving on, Now, that's all a lot, and hopefully that illustrates the type of prep that goes into setups like these, and that it's not all just about min-maxing, but just the base functionality. And this finally leads to part 5, unknown factors of the asker. So let's just assume for a second, after all the things I just said about the setup, there is some replacement for any of the stuff that I listed. 99.9% of the time, when someone asks what's a replacement for X, they do absolutely no thought on their own to see why a setup is bringing X thing they're trying to replace in the first place. And because of this lack of thought and research, they don't even have an idea of something to suggest as a replacement, and instead just vaguely ask what's a replacement for X, instead of asking something like, can Y be a replacement for X? The difference here is I and everyone else who makes setups have absolutely no idea what you have access to. So vaguely asking what's a replacement for X leads the responder to not only have to think about what can be a replacement in the first place, but also just hope and pray to God that you actually have that replacement. Because there have been so many times I've told someone use Y instead of X, only to be hit with, I don't have them either. I don't have Y either. And then I've wasted all this effort trying to make something work for you, all for it to be wasted because you don't know how to properly ask for help in the first place. And this can be okay in a small scale where, you know, one person asked me that or a friend asked me that. But when the vast majority of the player base operates like this, it can become incredibly frustrating, incredibly fast. All right, so let me go back to my homepage so you can see this Versusia that I freaking wasted 3 sparks on. So where do we go from here? This is where I'll probably start getting flamed. This is where I'll probably start getting flamed because I'm gonna start laying some dudes out. So let me circle all the way back to the start with the replies I saw on the advanced grids open discussion. They were people asking for things like replacements for certain characters, weapons, summons on the pages, easier access for new players, keeping older setups on the wiki pages longer after they've become outdated. And while this isn't an alternative based in the sense of replacing something optimal with something worse, but the opposite, updating things faster on the wiki as they are, I don't know what this was, as they come out, I guess is what I was trying to say. As they come out. So I've already gone on a tirade about my disdain for people constantly asking for replacements in general. But the thing I want to focus on now is the fact that people need to start learning and playing the game for themselves. This also circles back into knowing better ways to ask questions if you actually do need help, or actually trial and erroring things on your own. For one thing, I feel like a lot of people don't actually even watch setups and just look at the team provided, say, hey, I don't have X thing, and then either give up or ask for a replacement. Advanced Grids has very adamantly wanted a showcase for the setups they provide, barring specific, what the heck is this? Specific circumstances. So you should actually take the time to look at said showcase and see what the character weapon summon is even being used for in the first place, because there might not be a replacement for it. So for example, if you saw my Leviathan Mare setup on the wiki, a lot of people will just look and see, hey, that has Hunting, Rhine, Sarasa, and Raziel in it. I don't have Rhine. What's a replacement? Well, if you look at the video, you'll see what Rhine is doing, and you'll realize, hey, there is no Deacon replacement. Don't ask me that stupid Deacon question. Actually watch the video. That's what it's there for, to see what's going on. Actually watch it and see what's happening before you ask if that thing's even replaceable in the first place. You need to start learning what the stuff you have actually does and be able to compare and contrast that with the things you're trying to replace. And I'll already tell you now, some things just straight up can't be replaced. I think I'm going back, bro. This is how I get when I start ranting, bro. Again, going back to the Rhine example, just because you don't have Rhine doesn't mean you can't do Leviathan Mare full autos, but it might mean you can't do the setup in the video, and you should at bare minimum be able to see what Rhine is doing in that setup and see if there's even a character that does something remotely similar to what he's doing before asking for a replacement. This line of working through a team comp problem will naturally lead you to asking more specific questions. Like, for example, I see Ryan is tanking the Devorio at the end. I have Sidala, who also has an all ally sub. Can she work instead? Or I have Valentine Makra. Can I get her dodge all to line up at the end? And a lot of these questions don't even need to make it out of your own head when you actually think about it yourself, because both of those characters that I just listed, Makra and Sidala, their S3s don't even come up in time, even if the rest of their kits and damage were the exact same as, so you already know it won't work. You already know it won't work because both of their things are 12 turn cooldowns. Both of their S3s are 12 turn cooldowns. And we already talked about, again, if you're not oging, that joint's not getting reduced. So it's not going to come up in time because the setup kills the fight in 9 turns. So it's not going to work. Heck, I'd even be more accepting of someone saying, I thought about Makra and Sadala for the above reasons, and I see they won't work. Is there anyone else with a similar mechanic to Ryan that I'm overlooking? At least that tells me you thought about it a bit on your own. Which, again, I would rather you say something like that. Like, hey, I thought about these characters. You're the Teaking Earth God, bro. Is there anybody I'm not thinking about? Maybe there's somebody else. Maybe I don't know as much Earth stuff as you. Maybe there's somebody else. And then we can work with that. At least now I know you're thinking, right? And you're trying to figure out a solution. You're not just blatantly asking, hey, what's a replacement for blase blase? Another thing that's so frustrating about this is how expansive our wiki is in general. You can literally click on whatever you're looking for or looking at on advanced grids. Let's say it's a character, and it'll bring up their whole page with everything they have going on. You can then search for other characters or look at your own inventory to see if there's anything you can work with that does something similar. Following this, you have to stop being scared of everything and try things for yourself. Almost every setup created takes a lot of trial and error. Do you think the people making these setups are on private servers or something? On some Final Fantasy crap, bro? Do you think we're taking private testing this crap? No. When I'm testing Leviathan Mario or Esoteric or whatever, it's me using my host over and over and over again, fine-tuning crap. And trust me, I know how much it sucks that we have so few trials per day for this stuff. But it's just how the game works at the moment. Legit, when I test a new Belial full auto, I hate testing Belial. I hate him. I hate testing Belial because it literally takes days of trial and error, and potentially 5 minutes of wait over and over and over again, depending on if his shields are up and if I want to try and go for a full clear or not, or whatever RNG random apples I get, or blase blase. Trying to test all that stuff is not time efficient, bro. That joint takes a lot of time. And it's the same thing for high level setups, even more so because high level stuff takes even more testing, as well as even finding a group that can do it with you in the first place in the co-op rooms, and a group that can actually beat the fight, because it's very easy to end up in a co-op room and then not even beat the fight, and then your test is like whatever. If you need to see the end of the fight, or if you wanted to have a video showcase, well, the freaking run didn't clear, so now you got to do another one. This stuff can take a really long time to see how characters interact with mechanics, speeds of rooms, and your teammates. That's why it's even more mind-numbingly annoying when someone asks for a replacement for something in high level, because that's the hardest stuff to test and record for. So it would help a lot if you stop being scared of wiping one way. If you were scared of wiping one raid, for you to go test something yourself before asking me or someone else to do it for you. I'm not going to say no one cares if you wipe a raid, because I've gotten pissed at people wiping, and we've all seen the Aku crash outs in Tekken co-op. But in reality, nobody really cares after like 10 minutes, bro. We can rant and rage, but nobody really cares after like 10 minutes. And we definitely don't care about you in particular. How many times have we said something like, oh my God, these Tekken Wind players. Oh my God, these Earth players. Nobody says specifically, oh my God, Tekken Hilo always messes this joint up. Tekken blacklist that guy. No one cares about you, bro. No one cares. No one cares. Get in there and test it on your own, bro. It doesn't matter if you can white. Just get in there and test it. No one cares about you specifically. Ain't nobody gonna blacklist you. And if they do blacklist you, you want to be blacklisted by them because they're freaking idiots. And you don't want to play with them anyway because they're freaking stupid. And this leads back again into being able to ask better questions on replacements for things. Like what you see on the advanced grids page. Is the finished product, but these setups often have to go through a multitude of revisions in order to get to the point of actually working in the first place. There are some times when I can just look at a raid, and because I know the limits of my character's grid summons, I'm able to just easily throw something together for it. But this is not the norm for me at all. Got tongue-tied. This is not the norm even for me. So for example, Something like Leviathan Mare. I've talked about this on stream where I feel like some content creators that make full autos and stuff, we just have an affinity for some of these raids. Like for me, I think I'm just naturally really good at, well, I don't even say naturally. I think I'm really good at making stuff for Leviathan Mare and Esoteric. Why? Because I've spent so much time testing in those seeking raids. I know how those raids operate. I know the seeking deal. So I know when a character like Ryan comes out, I know I can just throw that man to Esoteric or seeking or Leviathan Mare because I know what that raid requires because I've done so much seeking testing for it. And if you want to get to that point, the only way to get to that point is to seeking test stuff for yourself. You're not going to be able to see that and come to those conclusions just copying something off advanced grids all the time. It's not going to work. Where the heck was I, bro? Where the heck was I? You need to be able to see what the raid is requiring of you and what you have in order to handle that, and then go test it out and see if the idea worked or not and what you can change to make it work. If you don't have everything on advanced grids, you should be using it as a guide to try and replicate it as closely as possible, or realize what the setup is trying to do in the first place and create another setup that covers the same bases. That's what you should be using advanced grids for if you're missing any. All right, so now I've got the replacement people out of the way. So now let's talk about the seeking new players. So for the new players, you're chopped. You're chopped. Plain and simple. Chopped, cooked, filleted. I don't know, bro. Roasted over a seeking a fire at night, bro. You're cooked. You're cooked if you're new, bro. And you need to realize that you're chopped, and that's okay. But just know and accept that you are indeed chopped. And I'm not even saying this to be mean. I just need you to realize that this game isn't like other gacha games where you can just plug and play crap and it's gonna work. If your team is mostly characters from when the game released, you're cooked. You're cooked. You're cooked, bro. You can still clear the content around your level, but you straight up just need to request backup for this stuff. What you really need to do is get in with some kind of community for the game ASAP. Cross-reference them too. You don't need to be in just one Discord or social media outlet. I have my own community Discord that you can ask questions in, and there are a few other English-speaking ones where people would be willing to help. You can get into like the English Grand Blue Discord. You can get into like DY's Discord. You can come to my or DY streams, anything like that, to ask questions, specific questions. Don't ask me seeking stupid crap, but specific questions if you need help. Pretty much the thing about it is when you're new, you don't know anything anyway, bro. You don't know anything anyway. So it doesn't matter even if you see basic stuff on advanced grids, even if you see entry level stuff on advanced grids, you're not going to know what's going on anyway. So you need to interact with people. You need to ask questions of people because that's the only way you're going to figure it out. It's either that or you just butt your head against something and try it over and over again, which includes testing until you figure it out. It's one or the other. You either ask questions or you just beat your head until you figure it out. That's just how it is. For this game is not like a lot of other gachas games. This game is seeking super convoluted and it's old as crap, and it keeps adding more stuff and more characters, more summons, all this random stuff, all these mechanics. It's a lot that you can handle for a new player, bro. And you're cooked. You're cooked unless you ask for help or like I said, you just beat your head against stuff. I think I already went over this part. I've seen a lot of people in the advanced grid discussion. I think I kind of went over this part too. But I've seen a lot of people in the advanced grid discussion thread asking about entry-level grids for the site. And even if people went through the trouble of doing that, you're not going to know what makes that grid what it is anyway. And you're still going to get cooked because you don't understand how the game works. Read your weapons, read the summons, and read your character's kits. Knowledge is power in this game, and you've got a lot to learn. Once again, the wiki is huge for this as well. It has all the character kits, weapon abilities and what they do, summon effects, and the like. And even though I hate tier lists, I absolutely hate tier lists, they can at least guide you in a way to look for characters worth anything. So if you see a character that's worth a 10 out of 10, even though I might not agree it's a 10 out of 10, at least you know there's something good about that Tekken character. There's something useful about that character. So it can at least push you a little bit into thinking about characters that are useful for something, right? Also use sites like Kami Game and Game With, even if they're in Japanese, just seeking auto translate that joint. They have their own tier lists and grids for things. Make use of YouTubers and Twitter accounts for people who play the game as well. Huataro is huge for different setups, and he has, you know, English stuff auto translate. People like Dengaku, you can auto translate. Like a lot of these Japanese people, even if they don't have English subtitles, they will have English closed captions that you can turn on YouTube, or they're using like the AI teaching English thing, which I don't really like, but they have that now too. So even a lot of the Japanese stuff you can access, you know, via translation. You can figure out what's going on from these people that know the game better than you. And even if you don't always understand what they're talking about, keep an eye on people talking about the game on Twitter and follow them if they seem reliable. Most of the information gets streamlined through Twitter or YouTube for this game. This game is very based all around teaching Twitter and YouTube. A lot of setups, you know, for Guild War right now, a lot of people will not post videos on YouTube for their EX Plus or 90s or 95s, but they will place a video with pictures of their grid and summon and stuff like that on Twitter. So you need to look for these people on Twitter and then use that as their basis. I think one of the issues with people and this game, and especially with advanced grids, is people think all the information is supposed to be handed to them on that site. And the wiki staff does their best, but you have to take it upon yourself to understand the nuance of what's going on. The information is there, you just need to find it. Next, I want to touch on keeping older setups on the wiki longer. Now, again, I'm not on the wiki team. I'm not a wiki team member, so I don't know how much stuff they want to keep on there, at what point they determine there's too much clutter and they need to get rid of stuff, or what their plans are for future expansions in the future for the site. But I think the key reason why people ask this is, in the first place, is kind of a mix of asking for replacements and being newer to the game, which to both, again, I feel like this is a case of wanting everything fed to you instead of searching for yourself. Think, for example, if you see a Hexa setup on advanced grids that's up to date, so it has a finished Draconic, but you don't have a finished Draconic yet. So it feels like a case of, I need a finished Draconic to do the raid, but I can't get a finished Draconic until I start the raid. But if you think for a moment, at some point, nobody peeking had a finished Draconic when Hexa came out. And there's definitely older setups you can look through, either through the YouTube search function on the wiki or just YouTube itself. I'll also tell you off rip, for a lot of these setups nowadays, the weapons and characters beat out a lot of things below Versusia and maybe partially Fall Zero, to the point that even if you're missing the big weapon of the raid like Draconic or Max Opus or something like that, you can outscale it anyway with weapons characters that are now available in the game. So what I'm trying to say is, essentially, when Hexa came out, the characters that we had when Hexa came out were not, like, we have more characters now. So essentially, it was harder to do those fights back then. But now, even if you don't have something like a Draconic, if you have like the latest and greatest characters in that element, you can just steamroll through it anyway, even without the Draconic, because the characters and the grids will carry you, because the characters and grids are way above the level of what Hexa was when it came out. The joint didn't get buffed, you know? So it's like, even if you're missing that stuff, don't be afraid to just do the raid anyway. And this is what I go on to say anyway. But again, I feel like people see the advanced stuff, say, oh, I don't have that, and then just give up. But when you could just try with what you have, especially if you're missing like a weapon. Weapons are obviously important, but a lot of times the characters and summons are really what make the setup outside of just having extra damage. So again, just to reiterate, what I'm trying to say is, even if you don't have like an upgrade Draconic, if you don't have a maxed out Opus, if you have characters and summons that are from this day and age, you can probably just do it anyway. You're probably just going to do less damage. And if anything, you may just have to look out for some of the damage triggers. But a lot of those raids back then, like 2 mil hits in Hexa, is not nearly as hard to do nowadays as it was before. So if you have a strong grid and strong characters, you can probably just steamroll that joint, even if you don't have the Draconic. So that's what I'm trying to get at. Lastly, I just want to touch on keeping the wiki up to date and the speed of turnover on things like that. Again, I'm not part of the wiki team, but I just want to say this what the heck did I write? But I just want to say for this, people working on that stuff are doing a lot of underpaid work, and it can be quite time consuming. Please remember that these people have jobs, schooling, and the like, and some people may not always feel like working on it. With that being said, everyone is able to add input for things like this. As I've said, I've done a lot of work on the Earth pages, recording and uploading setup, even without any real coding knowledge. So I would challenge anyone who wants faster updates to literally just do it themselves. This is also where you could show your stuff, and if you can actually make your own setups and they're good, you can get them on advanced grids too. And that's further encouragement to test things on your own. So essentially what I'm saying is do it for yourself. If you see a new PBHL setup that's not on advanced grids yet, and you made that joint or someone else made that joint and it's like 10 times better than anything that's on advanced grids, you can add that to advanced grids. You can join the wiki Discord and just ask them, hey, I have this setup. Can you guys look over this? I want to put it on the wiki, and they'll let you put it on the wiki if it's good. And that's all you have to do. If you want updates, you can do updates. You don't need to leave it until, you know, myself or like Umikin or DY or someone puts it on the wiki for you. You can do it yourself. You can do it yourself. Just ask someone before you try and do it. That's all I'm saying. So in conclusion, I say all this stuff from a point of relative frustration, but I don't say it with the intentions of being mean towards anyone. I just think overall, in a lot of the Granblue community, there can be a lot more self-accountability in order to get things done. And I think we'd raise stronger players overall if people follow down these kinds of paths. Yes, you're banned if you ask me for a replacement for anything. Leave me alone. So that's pretty much it. Again, this video is not meant to, you know, come after anyone or harass anyone. It is mostly just think, use your mind. Yugimoto mind crush. Free your mind, bruh. Just think about some of the stuff. You can think about setups too. You don't have to just be spoon-fed everything off of advanced grids or from a YouTube video. You can figure things out. Just look in your own inventory and go hit the raid and just see what works and what doesn't work. It's not that hard. It really isn't. And I guarantee you it will make you a better player overall. So that is really all I have to say. If I think of anything else, I will add as an addendum. Now I gotta go edit this joint. I don't know how long it's gonna be. But yeah, anyway, thanks for the support. I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.